Hello and welcome to Assembly Creative Tech 21. I'm Teppo Isperia-Suominen and I'll be hosting tonight. This is a pre-recorded clip, however, as I'm in the studio with Franky and Truck. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
I'm surprised I'm not live.
Yeah, you might be there live as well.
I
will see.
I will.
I can poke you to see if you're alive.
Oh, let's not do that.
Yeah, no.
All right. So for nearly 30 years, Assembly has been a platform for all to come together and create something new. And tonight is about trying to aim to create a playground that inspires to make even something more new, something different. That's what creative tech is all about. But in my mind and heart, demos have always been about creating something new and trying to test the limits of what you can do in a setting. And we're here to talk about demos mostly. So let's start with the basics. What is a demo? Because a lot of the people that are watching might not be familiar with the art and tech of what a demo is. So let's go through the basics.
Go ahead.
I think you touched on what it is. It's a combination of art and tech. Despite your pointing out that it's pushing the limits, it doesn't always have to be. It is a artistic endeavor that is done primarily involving computers. Does not always have to be, but primarily with computers. And over the past 30 years, of course, technology has changed. So back in the early days, it was a lot more about computers. Now, well, there's well, of course, in the 90s, you also had the multimedia portions creep in, but now it's much more mixed, and the technology has become such that it's easier to integrate different things. So it really is art done with computers by creative people.
It's a very succinct definition of demo. What do you have to add to that, Franky?
Well, first of all, I cannot top the word primarily to start with.
You want me to pronounce it a couple times?
No. Yeah, it's finding a segue to what the truck said. It is that I think we need to define what a creative person is, because it is done by creative people. Not all demos are also made just for fun. So some are made for ego, but most are made for fun, and therefore it is made by everyone. It can be made by everyone. You do not have to say, I am not creative, so therefore I cannot make demos. That is completely untrue. So everybody can make a demo on any platform, which we will touch later, obviously. So yeah, what is a demo? It is something that where you show what you can do, and it mostly involves computers, but it can also involve a paper, scissors, and a camera,
or an overhead projector.
Yes.
Or a subway screen, or
yeah.
My favorite demo category, we touched on this before the interview, is real wild, which is everything that doesn't fit into the other categories really, and you can find anything there, which is why I love it. It's the Pelle Peloton category of things, and well, yeah, mostly demos, like Chuck said, involve computers. That's the thing that people usually think about when they think of demos. And in the scene, we use the word real time. Do you want to explain what that means?
Go ahead. Can I have a go?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
So real time is the opposite of pre-recorded. Real time is everything that is happening now. When you look at, say, an image, a cube on a screen, the computer will calculate this at this very moment, 50, 60, 100 times per second, depending on your screen. That is real time. So, and that is the difficulty, that you have to do everything in real time. You can only use the resources that are available if the computer is at its limit, then you will have to improvise and optimize your skills to make the real time happen anyway.
Thank you. That's a very good explanation. I could not have said it that well. And in real time, in demos, there are, of course, in the competitions, there are categories usually. And for example, we have the intro categories, and this kind of came to mind when you said about optimization, because the intro categories are all about optimizing. Do you want to explain those a bit?
First of all, I am not an intro coder, but I will try my very best.
I could cover this.
Let's give it a try.
Well, primarily, go ahead.
So
You pronounced it quite well.
one of the things that happens when folks are creating things is that, with computers especially, is that things are so open and so there's so much that can be done that they find that if they limit themselves, they're more creative. And one of the ways that people will limit themselves is to reduce the size that they are able to work with, or their end result must be in a certain size. That means that you have to create everything in very small bits of code. Well, it's essentially a bit like origami. You fold it all up, and then you unfold it. And this technique leads to categories such as the 4K or 64K intro. Then beyond that, there's also an additional level of size coding, which is where you have a very, very small amount, and you really don't have even space to have data to unpack. And that is where you have very interesting effects that will feed on themselves or iterate over themselves. And sometimes they don't. It's a different category. Each one of these categories produces a different type of environment for the results, and it's very difficult to compare them. You can't really look at a size-coded thing compared to a 64K and say, these are equal, because they're not. It's not apples and oranges. It's size coding versus 64K. Once you've seen a few of these, then it makes more sense. But yes, there's a big difference between an intro and a demo. A demo has much more stuff that you can put in as far as content. You can even put in some animations. Size coding, no. You're limited to just what you can put into, well, in some cases, 16 bytes, which we're not going to try and explain how small that is, but it's infinitesimally small.
Very, very small. Thank you. I hope we've given a bit of an overview of what people might expect from the demo part of tonight. But let's touch on why we've been into demos for as long as we have. You two have been in the scene even longer than I have, and I'm touching on my 30th decade in the demo scene. So what is it about demos that we want to be here to view them, to create them, to watch other people create them year after year?
Why do we like demos is what you're asking.
Yes, why do we like demos is what I'm asking.
Because demos rule.
Why do they rule?
Because they are awesome.
This is true.
It's a simple matter of they're enjoyable. And when people are making things and they enjoy making them, there's a joy. They are creating joy, they're spreading joy, and joy is something that, especially in the past 2 years, we've needed to have a lot more of. So this is why demos are great. It's because people are creating things. And to touch on something we talked about a little bit earlier, when I'm talking about creative people, that for me is a definition of what we are and how we work, rather than a limit. I'm not saying, and I realize that you were saying, some people do say, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm not creative." That is incorrect. You just need to come up with an idea and then move forward. And one of the great things about the demo scene is how people who are involved encourage each other. Yes, there are a few naysayers, but mostly you will find there are people who are similar to you in enough ways or dissimilar to you in enough ways that you will receive encouragement to make something and to improve, and you get inspired. And that whole environment is why I enjoy this and why I have been involved with it for longer than a week.
Thank you. What about you, Frankie?
Well, I started with demos on October 14th, 1991, when I got my first mail swapping disc back in the mail. So we are all very old. But
I'd like to stop going in that direction.
Yes. So why do we like demos? As I'm just gonna come back is why I started watching them, because everybody starts watching demos before you start getting into the demo scene and start doing creative things yourself. And it was what drew me in were the storylines that were told in like the early 90s Amiga demos or the mega demos with like the 3-4 completely different parts made by 3-4 people who could then suddenly decide to work together anyway. And you would have completely opposite sides and visions and views and methods, and yet that would, when combined, become something totally awesome. And that just proved to me that, okay, this is possible. And from there it just goes on, and then you find out that having a flashing screen to a beat creates a wonderful thing in every demo that makes it really easy, and then it just sucks you in, and from there it's all winnings.
I have to agree, and maybe to pull it together, I would just that maybe for all of us, the reason why we love demos is that demos are art. It's a form of art, and for me, it's one of those forms of art that always blows my mind when I see it, because someone's thought of something that I would not have, and that makes me want to think of something different. It's a form of art, in my opinion. That's probably the reason why I keep on coming back to it.
There are some people who would say, no, it's not art, but those are people who are saying that perhaps that it's more human than art. And art is something that makes us human. It is a human endeavor, and that is why I like the demo scene. It is a human thing. The demo scene is not. There are some people who feel that it's all about technology. It's only 5% or less about technology. It's 95% human and 95% social. This is a very social thing.
I mean, that's the same as saying that paintings are all about the paint.
Yeah, it's not. It's about, yes, there's a technique there too to painting, multiple techniques, but it's the result and how was it created and what emotions come out of it. And yes, emotions, politics, anything is political. Everything is political. So anybody that's saying politics don't belong in demos or this or that doesn't belong in demos, make the demo that you want. If other people like it, great. If they don't, move on. It's just like other forms of art.
I could not agree more. You touched on that. During the last 2 years, we've needed joy more than maybe ever. I guess we have to talk a bit about the COVID pandemic and how it's affected the demo scene and this hobby of ours. How do you see that the last 2 years have been for the demo scene? I know that I've been quite off of the demo scene since for me nowadays it's mostly about the events that have been happening online or not at all. But for you two, how do you see the last few years for demos?
Do you want to start with this?
I'll start.
Yeah.
Because it's, for me, what I've noticed, it's an answer in two parts. First of all, there is it's not a split, but there is in the demo scene. But it's like two waves. You have everything happening on modern PCs, and with very new hardware and GPUs, and you have then what's called old school, your 8-bit, 16-bit machines. And what I've noticed is that when it comes to the more modern hardware on all the heavy PCs and GPUs, that has slowed down a bit, because I got the feeling that those creators, they want it to show it for the first time at an audience, at a venue, on a big screen, whereas for the old school releases, they've kept on coming, and they actually haven't been as much as any in the last few years. There have been many just online events which would only stream out, and the amount and the quality of the releases in the, say, Amiga, Commodore 64, but also your Ataris in 8 or 16-bit or whatever ZX Spectrum, have been at an extremely high quantity and quality, whereas now that luckily the doors have opened a bit and hopefully will remain open, well, I am very eagerly awaiting what those PC guys have been working on in the last 2 years, because they've had a lot of time to polish everything, and I want to see all that result from not showing anything for 2 years.
I could not agree more. I'm anxiously waiting for those. And it's nice to hear that the old school bit has been going on. I need to delve into those as well, because I've not been watching a lot of online events, unfortunately. Truck.
I was gonna. You mentioned before that you'd been a bit out there. There have been some conversations that people have said, I can't wait for real parties to start, and I have tensed up at that, because I've been involved with the first 2 weeks that I was involved, and I was going to calculate what it was, but we're just going to stick with weeks instead of years. There was a tremendous amount of time that I was living in the U.S. where basically I was remote to everything. And for me, being remote gives me a different perspective, I guess, than a lot of folks that feel that they need to go to a physical place. And yes, going to a physical place is wonderful, but I don't really make a separation between the actual physical event and the actual event. And when streaming first started and streaming of parties took place, I was having some problems with it because I really, really did want to be there. But as we've gone further, and of course not being able to actually leave or see people, it's been good to see and speak with them. So that's the online parties that have taken place. Some of them are actually in many ways online only. For example, the Love Bite competitions, which are size coding. And one of the really great things about the size coding live streams has been that people, because of the way that it's been organized and the platforms that have been used, which are fantasy computers in many cases, people who were just getting started or people who were interested could actually follow along at home and see what was taking place. Additionally, since they were done in a shader showdown type thing, it was 1-to-1, and you could see the things as they progressed over 20 minutes. And people could see how an idea was formed, how it changed over 20 minutes, and that you didn't need to spend, say, 4 years or 2 years working on something. You could actually get something done in a short period of time, and it was fun. So, between that and then some of the parties which are in, like for instance, there's a South American party that's been taking place, Flash Party. It's over 20 years old now, and there are loads of people who are like, they have a party now. No, they've had one. It's been going. This is just something that you weren't aware of because you were concentrating on your local area, and in some cases local could be a continent or 3 very large continents that are stuck together. But the other parts of the world, Australia has had demo scene parties for a long time, and all of us are remote to that. Again, South America, Canada, some some limited parts of other places. But I actually got in, when talking with folks in South America, found out that one of them had actually worked with one of the fellows that I had known from one of the Mexican demo groups 20 years ago. And, well, followed up, and, well, there's where he is now. So this offline has actually allowed me to connect to some people who I haven't been seeing before. Unfortunately, it's also led to some splintering of communication things and communication silos. And this is something that we do need to work on as the demo scene culture. We need to not silo ourselves up. We need to actually have communication in between. And, well, I hope that improves over the next bit as people actually start talking to each other in person. And there is a thing about being in person. There are some people who say that they won't go to parties. They're just going to sit on their couch. That's the wrong attitude. You should go, and you should meet people in person. But you don't have to. If you can't make it, it is perfectly fine to contribute and work with people remotely. There's a joy in both.
That's actually a very good sentiment. We can end this bit on that. So do enjoy the demo scene. Do participate either from home or live at the parties, or meet up, communicate. And we will touch on tonight's show in a bit for a bit more in-depth on what we might expect tonight. Thank you, Truck and Franky. We will be back once more tonight.